wisdom, student enrollment. That's what the class of God students enrolling. Supreme wisdom, I study it hard. The study of myself is the study of God. Supreme wisdom, write your letter, get your X. Supreme wisdom, that's what you'll be getting next. Supreme wisdom, some call it the lessons, but I call it life, actual facts, no guessing.
This is the answer to your question. The Honorable Elijah Muhammad says in the Theology of Time lecture series, he says, "So my friends, brothers and sisters, of the nation that have no birth record, and have no end, over yonder, there's no such thing as a beginning to the black man, nor is there any such thing that you can prove truthfully an end to him. You can't prove truthfully his birth record, though we can get him after his birth. We can't tell you the Adam of life, which started him out into perfection of the stature and form of a man. We can't tell you that date. We can get back there. God taught me so near to it until I will not go into that kind of teaching with you, because I don't believe you have enough knowledge to go halfway of the man. But I have been taught so near to him that I have been put to counting of years on it yourself. I am not able, because I would have to go long. I would have to go to how long darkness took to produce the atom, which the man was made from himself." And he says, let me see if I can quickly go into it out. He talks about the perfection of the human being. I'm just looking for that one.
Well,
it's one where he talks about the perfection.
I think what the word that you
here
used,
it is right here.
The word that you used when you talked about the resistive force was constrained, but you didn't use the word eliminate. So
no, I said destroy.
Well, I heard you say constrain the resistive force.
Okay.
But you said destroy the brown germ and constrain the resistive force. Well, if a resistive force is positive or works positive, so for example, when I stand on the earth, the atoms on this floor resist my weight, such that I don't just keep falling forever and ever. So that resistance is something that I actually want. You know, gravity actually works to help me to move around on the earth from one part to another. So gravity, on one hand, you know, comes from the same word as grade, but and it's looked at as, you know, something that pulls you down. But it's a force that we use and that the car utilizes. Of course, it would work without gravity. Without gravity, the tires wouldn't be able to, you know, there has to be some resistance because the tires wouldn't work. See what I'm saying? So you gotta be able to constrain resistance in some places, because you want to minimize resistance in a wire sometimes, but you may want to increase it in another spot. And I think it's our ability to use those things like we would desire. Our ability to manipulate those and tweak them like we would desire. That's the ultimate goal. Not necessarily eliminating the resistant force, but eliminating the brown germ and therefore perfecting our use of the resistant force. That's just something on that.
Okay, before you make your last comment, give your last comment. It says that, so this here, our number 6, and I'm going to the 6 next week, from that which we began to revolve as we were, as he was, pardon me, he made himself to revolve, and then he caused whatever come in the darkness, it revolved like himself. And that's he's done. We can't help from revolving, and we are not, say, a perfect human being, because actually our form is not perfect. So since this is our number here, what we were before that number, it was like this. We left out the nothing and we were made ourselves one over there. Now, with that being said, there's something that I'm gonna deal with next week. One is the circular motion, that's perpetual circular motion. It's motion, and in order to have motion, you have to have friction. But it's perpetual. There's no beginning, no ending. The circle. Even though this is not a perfect circle, but you can't, if this line wasn't here, you couldn't tell where the circle began and where the circle ended. But because of how the universe was created, this is how things, we go spiraling. This is based on this transcendental pi, and this is based on 5. It's two different numbers that you'll find in nature, and you'll find this coded all through nature, this spiral, as opposed to this circle that is at the root of it is this ratio of pi, which deals with the difference, and I know this is a lot, I'll break it down next week, but this deals with the difference of how the God how the God in the beginning, perpetual circle. Time, this measures time right here. You can't tell time on a circle that just keeps on crossing over on itself. But this, when it starts moving in a spiral, that's how we write our history, in cycles, like that. And we have a beginning of the cycle and the end of the cycle. That's how you calculate time. Sister Gabrielle, bring us on home. We're getting ready to go home.
One thing I will say is only thing I'll say about what you mentioned about gravity. Gravity is not a resistive force. I mean, it's an attractive force. It doesn't oppose any motion. But friction is a resistive force and resistance, like you said. What we just call resistance when we talk about electrical force is a resistive force because it literally opposes whatever direction that motion is opposing. If it changes direction, it's going to oppose in whatever direction it changes. But gravity is not.
No, I didn't say gravity was a resistant force, but I said with gravity.
Yeah, it does pull you.
Yeah.
Even down is relative, but it pulls you in. But gotcha. It pulls you towards the center of mass, but it's still all right. Well, what I will say, going back to it, but the important part that the balance again that he put into it was what was key. Is when he said it's not necessarily about eliminating these different forces, but it's about being able to control these forces and use them for your benefit, which is really the key. Now, going back to in the beginning, well, rewind a little bit. We have a saying, rising above emotions into the thinking of God, right? Rising above emotions, a lot of times we see emotions as a bad thing, but we put that bad that bad stigma on it because we can't control it. We can't use it for our benefit, so we just call it in our minds bad. But again, it says rising above emotions, thinking God, not eliminating emotions and becoming God. It's not about, destroying emotions and becoming God, but rising above it and becoming God. The Creator, Allah, again, he went to war with the darkness. Again, like I go back to earlier what I said. So obviously, the state that he was in, he did not want to stay there. So he wanted to change. He desired to change. He had an emotion about what he did. He felt pain.
We're told it was an intense
That's
dislike.
right. And so that emotion was so strong that it allowed him to sustain the creation process or the self-creation process and to see it out to the end till he was completed, until he was actually, until he became into creation. It was that strong of an emotion, but simultaneously that emotion kept unchecked would also be his demise, or our demise, the universe's demise, if not kept in check. And so that same emotion that got him out of the state. You have to have strong emotions to get you out of the state of darkness. Because sometimes, nowadays people talk about depression, right? And they just can't just get up off the couch for nothing in the world. Nothing can drive them to get up off the couch and then take all these drugs. But just off of Allah's control of his emotions alone and being able to be in control of his emotions and let that emotion drive him to change his state of being was that strong. And that again goes to how powerful emotions are. And it's about us being able to control our emotions to bring about the things that we desire.
So you don't want to be paralyzed. You don't want to paralyze analysis by emotion.
Yeah.
But sometimes emotion can cause your analysis,
But-
your analytical mind to be paralyzed, which means that panic sets in.
Mm-hmm.
And when panic sets in, you don't operate in a logical order
Right.
to get yourself out of the problem. You often compound the problem
That's
Right.
because your analysis.
Sister, more.
But one thing that we do know about the Creator God is that He rises above emotion into what? Thinking. How do we know that He actually got to a point where He can think and didn't let His emotions cloud His judgment? Because we are here today in a mathematically sound, built for a true universe. So that shows that He had emotion, He controlled them, and was able to think rationally.
You're talking about the self-creation?
The self-creation and creation of the universe.
Okay. 'Cause-
He had to be thinking on some high level and not letting his emotions, we don't live in an emotional
Well, there was not,
universe.
well, one thing I would say is that in that time, when you're at the root, then you know the root. The reason that Allah knows the root of all things is that's where He was at the beginning. See what I'm saying? So you're gonna know wherever you start. And one time that was all that there was. And we're taught that He went to war with the darkness, which means that He must have viewed darkness as a threat to whatever He was trying to establish. And in order to be a creator, you have to be enlightened. So darkness is a threat to the creative process. So therefore, and as Honorable Louis Farrakhan said, the darkness exposed, the light exposed all that the darkness was hiding. So there were things in the darkness that he needed to see, learn, so on and so forth. So darkness was, at least, it must have been viewed as a threat or something that should be eliminated, that it would interfere with the process, but he could not get, he had to have some sort of a strong emotion, but at the same time, he had to not allow that emotion had to fuel his movement.
Right.
But at the same time, it could not be such that it cut off his analytical ability, as which happened with us, was the reason that we wind up in Angola and Gigs and the other places that we wind up.
And to this day, there's still a bad stigma to
Well,
darkness.
what I want us,
inherent in human beings. And you try to like people get scared.
what I want us to do is really, the reason that we're studying this, of course, is to know the history. Because the history is most attractive and best rewards as research. And of course, as the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad says that it really speaks into the springs and motives and actions of people, human actions. And so what we want to do, we want to know it, but we don't want to necessarily we want to unpack it, but we want to always make it relevant. And we have to square it based upon what the teachings say. So, with that being said, if we know that there will be a perfected human being, there's a process by which perfection comes about. What does perfection look like? How does it manifest itself? We talk about decay. We're talking about we all have to go through this law. Decay will always be something that will exist. But it's that conservation of energy law that will, for everything that we lose, we'll gain something back, so there'll always be that equilibrium. But there will have to be somewhere, in order to have unlimited progress, where we don't lose ground, where we are, either in a steady state or we're gaining ground. And so if he said that Master Fard Muhammad destroyed the brown germ in himself. That force, Satan is a force. It's just the negative side of Allah. It's a force. So teaches the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan, once that Satan of self has been destroyed, then what really can be to stop us from making progress? You know, Satan, of course, is a person that exists on the outside. The satanic mindset is a mindset that wants to destroy the original man. I mean, we do things to ourselves, like eat more than one meal a day, eat the wrong foods at the wrong time. That is the Satan of self trying to destroy the original man. Even though it may seem something small, but the reality of Satan is trying to destroy God. And so when we can destroy the brown germ, we can destroy the things that hinder us from making this vessel a perfect machine. Because at the end of the day, the human form is a functionary of the mind. The mind actually is in control of the physical manifestation. If you want to look a certain way, your mind is going to tell you to get up and go to the gym, to do these, work out on these weights, to eat this, don't eat this. It is going to determine how the physical looks or how the physical functions. The mind is the thing that runs this machine. It's almost like an avatar that's being controlled, and we're just simply just walking around thinking that we're individual beings, but we're all part of this collective. And so, with understanding how the universe was formed, it should give us some insight in how we, of course, can become like the Creator. We can grow into His mind through submission, and the brown germ can be eliminated. If Master Fard Muhammad destroyed the brown germ within himself, and his mother was a Caucasian, so she was a devil by nature, then we do have some Caucasian in us, all of us. We should be able to destroy it.
Here's the thing I'm going to say.
Yes, sir.
The brown germ is in the genetic material of the original man. Okay? Now, Master Fard Muhammad, I don't know where it taught that he destroyed the brown germ.
It's in a table talk. Imam Sultan had said that a couple of weeks ago. Yes, sir.
Because his DNA is the same, and keep in mind, the brown germ is the germ used to graft the enemy out of the ring. And when you look at him, I imagine if he destroyed the brown germ, when only the black was left, that his whole complexion would have reverted back to that other side.
Well, melanin is not just on the external color. We have something called eumelanin, which is actually in the DNA. It's not just the skin color. But before you say that, the human mind has the ability to really to make a universe just like the originator did. Our genetic coding, we have, they say about 97% of our DNA is turned off. So we have just keys that are turned off. Cancer is just a cell that turns on. We probably have, you ever seen black folks so black they look like they're glowing? They look bioluminescence, like you can take them down to the depths of the sea and they'll just light up we have people that look like that. They're so black, they look like they glow. The Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad said if you cut off an appendage, he said that, that you can grow it back. And he's talked about how he almost cut off his thumb and that it grew back. Those are codons in our genetic makeup that can be turned on by our own minds. If you see it anywhere in nature,
I'm just.
Like a salamander?
Right.
Anything that happens in nature is all coded in the original man.
But keep in mind, here's what I'm talking about. I'm talking about destroying the brown germ itself, which means a significant and fundamental change in the very genetic makeup of Master Fard Muhammad would have to take place.
We hadn't seen him in a while, so
Right,
we don't know.
well, yeah, I understand that. But it would have had to have already been the case at the time.
But maybe it happened over a period of time. It's not
Right,
something
but
that
keep in
happened
mind
like immediately.
When you make changes in DNA,
Mm-hmm.
you normally see changes which correspond
Right,
with
correct.
that in that thing. So my thing of it would be is that, and of course I would have to hear that,
Mm-hmm.
and I know that over time the brown germ will be eliminated. But I did not know or had not heard that it was eliminated in any one person,
Mm-hmm.
ever, even his father.
Yes.
But that it will be eliminated at a
How
certain
he
point.
could, how can he be perfect? How can he be perfected man?
Well, again, him being perfected has to do with his thinking, has to do with his mind, not necessarily the vessel.
But the
No,
mind
the
actually
DNA.
controls the vessel.
I'll go along with
Yes,
that.
sir.
But I don't know if, in other words, we would have to look at that.
Yes, sir.
That particular thing, we may or may not be going too far, and like I say, I'll be willing to.
Well, I
listen.
didn't say it. The Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad said it. Imam Sultan is the one who he was bequeathed the table talks
Mhm.
and all of the messengers. So he actually, in going through it, heard that Master Fard Muhammad, Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad said that he destroyed the brown germ. Yes, ma'am, and this our last
We can go
comment.
ahead and we can actually close out, because
Thank you.
overtime, but I would like to make a closing comment.
A post-closing comment.
It don't have to-
Well, thank you all so very much for coming to your class and giving me an extra 15 minutes. You all took an extra 15
You
as
reclaimed your
well.
time.
But you all reclaimed some extra time as well. But nonetheless, stay tuned next week. We're gonna go a little bit deeper into who is the original man, dealing with Allah's the fashioner of shapes. So, we have a physical universe that he fashioned. And so we're gonna go into dealing with the physical form and him fashioning the universe out of shapes. So, thank you all for coming out. May Allah bless you. And I greet you as I came before you. As-salamu alaykum.
Supreme wisdom, some call it the lessons, but I call it life, actual facts, no guessing.